Good morning, everybody. We are back. It's another week. We are excited to be here. Welcome to the show. It is, holy cow, it is another Monday, and I got with me Suzanne Lucas in the house. She is known as the evil HR lady. My name is Brenda Neckbottle. I am known as just Brenda, the HR lady. And we're excited to have you guys. We're going to flash up our social media gang. We're going to ask you to follow us. We're also going to ask you if you just take a minute as to go ahead and rate this episode. There's a lot of really good stuff that comes out of this. And if you would also be so great as to go ahead and share this with somebody who you know is in HR or is an employer struggling with people issues, that would be fantastic. How are you?
We love you forever.
That's right. We will love you forever. We may not know who you are, but we will love you forever.
That's right.
How are you?
I am splendid. I admit I promised to do something last week and I didn't, which was I was going to dye my hair.
No, you didn't, but you did get a very cute haircut.
I got a haircut, but because I'm debating, do I stay with the bottle red or do I go back to my natural color? I don't know. It's a tough call right now.
They usually are. They usually are, but I kind of like you in the red, to be honest with you.
Well, I do too, but I don't know. Anyway, that is not anything to do with our.
It has absolutely nothing to do with it. Total girl moment.
I can't even segue it like I did last week.
No, you can't. You have no room with it. But you know what we can segue to?
What?
We can talk about the HR summit that's coming up real quick.
We can talk about the HR summit, which I make no promises about my hair for the HR summit.
Well, you might be thinking, like, what is the HR summit? So the HR summit, you know what? I'm going to let you tell it for a second.
Okay, I would be happy to. So the HR summit we have on, oh dear, I've forgotten the date.
It's next week. Starts next week.
Starts next week on March 20th. That's not next week. That's 2 weeks. March 22nd.
I was testing to see if you were on top of things.
I am. No, it's in 2 weeks. March 22nd, we have a virtual HR summit. And there's several amazing things about this. First of all, we're having amazing speakers.
Yes.
And secondly, you can get HRCI or SHRM credit for watching and attending all 5 days of our summit. And just so you know, this is a bargain. The presentation I am giving when hiring the perfect candidate isn't an option. There are other places you can hear that, but for the same cost to hear that as you would to hear all 5 presentations here. So,
yep.
It's a super bargain.
It's impressive stuff. And you know what? You break it down into 5 days, and it's literally like $50 a day, which you really cannot get good, professional, expert content that will allow you to get certification credits for less than minimum for one event, minimum $100.
Right.
So if you do the math, it actually you're getting a hell of a steal. It's $250 for the week. You have to attend all 5 days. It's amazing content. We also have a New York Times bestselling author Jason Redmon coming on. And that's awesome.
I'm really excited to hear his, partly because I think his topic sounds cool, and also because I don't know him well. Whereas the other presenters, you and Steve Watson, I know really well, and I know what information you're going to give, and it's going to be fantastic. So I'm excited for this Jason Redmon because I don't know anything about him, but the getting off your ex sounds to me like something kick in the butt that I need, because sometimes I'm just like, oh.
Well, it's not that kind of getting off the ex kick in the butt. It's about how do you really deal with these life ambushes. I mean, COVID is a really great example of that, right? His philosophy is you're either in one, just getting out of one, or ramping up to be smacked in the face by one. And Jason is a perfect example of this because Jason is a medically retired Navy SEAL. He actually took a round in the face and lost his nose, and a bullet came into his face and came out the side over by his ear. He almost lost his arm, and this was all done in an ambush. So he's taking his experience and he give that. And his book, Trident, was the New York Times bestselling book. And I mean, Jason's just a really, really good man. His wife is pretty awesome too, Erica. And so he's going to be on talking, and that is going to be absolutely fantastic.
I'm very, very excited. So if you are excited, go ahead and sign up. You can find the information at therealhrshow.com.
Yep.
And you can find it at evilhrlady.org. And I'm betting you can find it at bestpractices.work.
Yes, you can. You can also find it at brendathehrlady.com as well. So
it's everywhere.
It is everywhere. It's leaching out. So
it's going to be great. It's going to be worth your time. It's going to be really worth your time.
And because we've got high caliber speakers, I mean, literally, we are the experts. We are the experts in what we do. I mean, Suzanne's been writing. I was stalking Suzanne back in 2007 when she first started.
That's like so creepy.
I know, right? Anyway, so I mean, she's been doing this a long time. She's written over 1,000 articles on ink. 1,000 articles. The day she reached her 1,000th article, I reached out to her and said, "Congratulations, you hit 1,000." She goes, "Have I really done that?" She really had no idea. It was hilarious.
I don't keep track because I just keep going.
No, she does. And we're both chargers in our own right. And so she had no idea she read it, but 1,000. I mean, that's huge. And then you've written, I don't know how many since then. I think you're stroking up close to about 1,100 or 1,200 now.
I have no idea.
Let's prolific.
Say that it's more than 7.
That's right. There you go. So, we are, not to toot my horn, but I am, I've got multiple business awards. I get a lot of accolades for doing what I do. I'm constantly asked to speak. Steve's the same way. Look at Jason, New York Times bestselling. I mean, seriously, people, the amount that you pay for this webinar, you could not get it anywhere else.
No, you couldn't.
Can't do it.
You would be paying at least twice as much, if not 3 times as much for this kind of credit. Easily.
So,
it's going to be fabulous, interesting credit. It's not boring credit.
No, it's not. And there's only limited seats available right now. Right now, we've reserved it to 20. So if you need the credits, get in. If you want to hear great contact and get those touch points with people who know what is going on in this industry and are helping other people figure out those problems, get in on it, right? So you got all the websites, it'll be attached to everything. You'll see our email. You're going to see our blasts and social this week. So definitely get on it, because once those seats are full, we're not going to be opening any more up.
Absolutely.
So we want to have you there.
All right. We both clapped our hands at the same time. We've been working together too long, Brenda.
That was the international clap that was heard around the world.
That's all right. So let's talk about our topic today.
Yes. Does HR cover corporate sins?
Yes. And so how this came about this morning, I was on LinkedIn because I'm a LinkedIn addict. And I'm happy to accept your invitation on LinkedIn too, by the way. And I came across this post by Jonathan Pollard, who is a lawyer, and he describes himself as a non-compete lawyer, trade secret lawyer, competition lawyer, employment lawyer, second opinion counsel, expert witness, writer. And he said this. I'm going to read his whole thing. It's a little long, but I think it's an interesting thing that he has to say. HR is not your friend. The HR department works for the company. They do not work for you. They might give you chocolates and a mug with some cheesy HR work-related quote on it, like, "My brain has too many tabs open." They might give away tickets to a terrible HR-approved concert, like Maroon 5. They might tell you that the door is always open. I've met countless people who say, but I went to HR. People who are being discriminated against, sexually harassed and assaulted at work. People who weren't being paid required overtime. People who were being retaliated against for blowing the whistle or refusing to participate in illegal conduct. You name it. I'm not talking about, oh, my boss is a jerk. I think I'm in a hostile work environment. There's no law against being a jerk, and I'm talking about truly egregious situations. I've been involved in countless cases where big companies had a standing policy of destroying evidence, literally a corporate cover-up. As soon as an employee complains to HR about any of this, they destroy, scrub any pertinent evidence, documents, emails, or text messages. Then they start papering up the personnel file with negative performance reviews. Any lawyer who is truly confronting truly illegal conduct at work needs to call a lawyer, not corporate HR. So this is the accusation that Jonathan Pollard, attorney, throws at HR. And it will come as no surprise to any of you that it kind of rubs me the wrong way.
Oh, I'm sure a lot of people have their hackles up about this one.
I'm sure that they do. Now, first of all, he is correct that sometimes this happens, but he is not correct that this always happens and this is par for the course for HR.
Agreed.
I mean, I've been in HR a long time. Brenda's been in HR a long time. And while I have seen this type of behavior in things that land in court cases and the like, most of the time, HR wants to do what's right, in my experience.
Absolutely. I would agree.
And so while there are people that are out there covering stuff up, sometimes it's not so much that they're evil as so much as that they are panicked. And they don't know or understand what's going on. And one of the big problems that HR faces as a profession is that there's a lot of companies out there that just appoint rando person to be the HR manager. I looked up a friend from high school last week on LinkedIn for a completely unrelated reason. And I noticed that her job title included head of HR. She was CFO and head of HR. I happen to know she has zero HR training. You know, that's those type of people are sometimes making those decisions. And she's a great person. I'm not saying she would ever do anything like that, but I'm also saying she has no clue.
Yeah.
Just
you know, and a lot of the stuff that you're talking about, and I've seen all of that. I've seen every single accusation that he's made, and sometimes he's not wrong, but where I've seen it is in organizations where they don't have anybody in place. They think they're doing the right thing, and nobody's really they're doing it out of ignorance. It's not, I mean, yeah, there are cases out there where it has been done maliciously. I mean, we'd be foolish if we thought that those things didn't happen, but that's the exception and not the rule. That when these things happen, it's because employers simply don't know, which is the whole part of the whole reason why we're out there banging the drum on this topic all day long, every day.
I think you're right. There's a lot of people that don't know. And, you know, one of the things that he mentioned was unpaid overtime. This is something that I have encountered with junior level HR people, that they don't get at all what the rules are around overtime pay. And there's just this concept that as long as you have a manager title, then you're salaried exempt. And that is not true. And it happens over and over again, especially in restaurant business, where someone will get the title of a shift supervisor and they will make them salaried and exempt, even though they're not exempt, but they're making that way. And they get this flat fee. It's not a matter of people maliciously doing it. I mean, sometimes I'm sure there are, but for the most part, they're just like, oh, well, managers are exempt. You're now a shift supervisor. You're a manager, even though 90% of your activity is exactly the same as everybody else on the shift. You're just the one that manages people's breaks or something like that. I mean, that was basically back a long time ago when I worked at Burger King. Our shift supervisors were making burgers, handing out orders. And the things that they did that were different is if a customer said, I want to talk to a manager, that's who they got to talk to. And then they would count the drawers at the end of the night and tell everybody when to go on their breaks. But 90% of their day was spent doing the same work that everybody else. They were not exempt by any way, shape, or form. And I will say, for the Burger King I worked for, they were all hourly paid, which I was aware of even at 18. I'm such a weird HR person.
Well,
there you go. I don't know why I knew that, but I did. So there are some things like that where it's innocent. It's just that they don't know.
No, and it kind of, how would they know, especially when nobody's told them otherwise, right? So these are the types of things, though. And you know what? Look, he's a brilliant marketer for doing something like that. He's brilliant.
Oh yeah, he's gotten so many responses, 158 comments, 825 likes or whatever's. Yeah.
So he's found that emotional button that got pushed. And here's the thing: it's easier to get somebody in on the negative than it is to get somebody in on the positive. That's just how we're built, how we're wired, right? And a lot of people don't believe me when I say this. Like, well, I'm a very positive person. I'm like, yeah, that's on the outside. What is your inside chatter saying? Because you're not going to sit there and admit that to me, and I know that. And like, even when I do, some smaller sessions, if I do group workshops and stuff like that, and I'll throw this out there, especially when we're talking about communication and building trust with your employees, I'll throw this out there and people are just like, yeah, right, whatever. They're like, they don't buy it. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to prove it to you. And if you don't believe me, watch this. I call 2 people up to the front of the room. We have 2 Post-it boards, right? 2 easels. One person has a green marker, one person has a red marker. The person who has a red marker is the person that writes down all of the negative comments. And with the green marker is the one that writes down all the green ones, all the positive ones. So then what I'll do is I'll instruct the group and I'll say, here's what I want you to do. I want everybody to start shouting out emotions, 1-word emotions. And if it's negative, red, it'll go up on the board. If it's positive, green, it'll go up on the green board. And what they find very quickly is that the red list grows faster than the green. Every single time, because that's how our brains are wired. We're negative by birth and by words not coming out about. Oh my gosh, environment. There it is. That's the one I want.
I mean, this is so true when you think about it. Like if I said, Brenda, how was your weekend? And you said, oh, it was fine. I got up and I had a cup of coffee. I took Nicoa for a walk, and then I came home and and you just told me all these nights. But if you're like, oh my gosh, I was driving and you would not believe it. There was a snowstorm that came out of nowhere. And suddenly it's an interesting story, because the nice, positive, nobody wants to hear about your lovely trip to Hawaii, but everybody wants to hear about your trip to Hawaii where the volcano went off.
Yeah. And it's easy to be negative. That's the thing. It's so easy to be negative. But when you're negative, you miss out on all the positive that comes to you.
Yeah. And so Jonathan Pollard here, some of the things he brings up, they happen. And as a matter of fact, I can pull out EEOC cases, Supreme Court cases that back up every single thing that he said.
Yep.
But I can also tell you, as someone that has been in HR for 20 something years, that most HR people are not destroying evidence. Most HR people are taking you seriously when you come in. Now, sometimes there's nothing that HR can do about it because HR is never the final decision maker.
Correct.
And we've talked before, you and I, Brenda, about situations where we had to stand up to executives and be like, what you are doing is not going to work. Here are the reasons. And they went ahead and did it anyway. I mean, there was one specific time for me when I sat down with a vice president of a major pharma company, and I'm like, I know you don't want to give this particular group of employees a raise. There was a lot of reasons behind it. But it's not going to go over well. And it's going to cause more problems down the road. And here are the problems it's going to cause. And he was like, no, we're not doing it. So everybody in the company gets a raise except for this particular group. And the reason why quickly is that they were about to be sold to another company, this product. So anybody that worked on that product was just being sold. And it turns out they rebelled, the buyer rebelled, and we had to go back and give raises to these people. We had to find money elsewhere. And he was like, why didn't you tell me? And I'm like, I didn't tell you. But in that case, I got overridden. That type of stuff happens. And there are absolutely times in which an HR person will come and say, look, this person is sexually harassing other people. And they're like, yeah, but he's a star performer. So what we're going to do is we're going to give a package to his victim. We're going to have her sign a non-disclosure agreement, and everybody's happy. But the problem that we know is that people are rarely a one-off sexual harasser. If they're sexually harassing one employee and you pay her off, then they're just going to move their sights onto someone else. And it just keeps going. It's very rare in my experience that somebody is sleazy one time.
Right. And, and that's the thing is, like, if you do wind up actually settling out of court for a sexual harassment thing, you set a precedence, right? If you pay somebody off or something, like, you set a precedence, and that's going to be hard to beat.
It makes it very difficult. But for the most part, now I don't disagree with him that there are times when you should just go straight to the lawyer. And when things are really egregious, there is a lot that a sternly worded letter from an attorney can fix. Because a lot of times your senior management will pay a heck of a lot more attention to a letter from a lawyer than from the HR manager who's saying the exact same thing. And there's been plenty of times when I've advised HR managers, call up your employment lawyer and have the employment lawyer tell your boss the same thing. And they do that, and then suddenly the boss is like, oh, okay. That's absolutely true. I'm never going to discourage anybody from calling an employment attorney. But I do want you to realize that for the most part, HR people are trying their best. Their limitations, they have limitations on them for sure. But it's not this conspiracy against employees.
No, it's not. It's not meant to do that. Some leaders just don't know how to move forward, and sometimes not moving forward is an answer for them, but it's what opens them up to liability.
Yes. And liability is a huge issue.
Absolutely it is. Absolutely it is. And, but the hardest part about being in this kind of a situation is that for HR people, when a leader doesn't take action, it really rides our call to action button harder than it did before, because we're the ones that are trying to champion the right and the wrong, right? And it won't always go over very well with your leader if you don't frame it appropriately. Like, if you start banging on your leader's head and trying to get them to sit down and say, like, you have to do this, you have to do this, and then you start using scare tactics on it, well, guess what? Any good leader worth their salt is going to look a scare tactic in the face and see it as a challenge, and not to take it on and say, hey, listen, I should probably listen to this person, but they're going to take it on as, how do I defeat this? And they may not be may not have the right mindset to set up to actually go forward and do that. So we want to make sure that, in our efforts that we're not sabotaging our own purpose, right? We're not setting ourselves up to fail, because we will do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We don't want to set up ourselves to fail, and we don't want to set up our employees to fail either.
Right.
And I think for the HR people listening to this, and for the management people listening to this, don't be disheartened. People have a negative attitude for HR for many, many reasons. I mean, it's why I call myself the evil HR lady. It's not because
she's really that snarky. No, she's not.
For good reason.
Suzanne's a good lady.
I'm a good person.
She's a good person.
I'm a good person, except, I live, 5 kilometers from France. So I'm definitely going to the bad place. But otherwise, don't feel like everyone is out to get you, and your job is very, very, very hard. Because another thing, one of the things he said is that, they start manufacturing documentation in files.
Right.
Nobody's got time for that. Nobody's manufacturing things except in really super egregious situations. What it frequently is either the situation is far more complicated than anybody wants to come out and say. No one ever comes and complains, my boss was using racial slurs, but the reality is that I was also using racial slurs, and I was calling her a whore, and then she called me this, and they never tell you the whole story. It's just like, I was, engaged in my work actively, and she walked up and said, "Look, you bleepity bleep." Admits that. And so often when you start doing an investigation, you uncover all of this stuff. Mm-hmm. And sometimes as well, if you have a manager who is a bad manager and who has been abusive or discriminatory, they don't have to manufacture bad performance appraisals. The manager has already written those. They're already documented. And which is also another reason that if you are listening to this as an employee and you get a bad performance appraisal and you disagree with it, you probably can't get it changed, but you can write your response, and they will include that in your file, so that several years down the road, if they're doing an investigation, then the HR person who wasn't even hired when this happened will go, where's this response?
Look at that.
I need to work this out. But I can also say, as an HR person, that I've had plenty of times, hundreds of times, thousands of times, when people have come to me and said, my performance rating is inaccurate, it is too low. Do you know how many times I've had somebody come to me and say, my performance rating is inaccurate, it's too high?
I'd be willing to say probably quite a bit.
I've never had anybody complain that theirs is too high. They've always, nobody ever comes and says, oh, you gave me above expectations. I was really just meeting expectations. Nobody ever says
that one myself.
So that is something to keep in mind as well, that this manufactured information, not made up. I mean, maybe it's inaccurate, because heaven knows managers don't do a good job of performance appraisals and of documenting things. But it's not a matter of HR like, okay, now we're going to rewrite performance appraisals from 2017 and stick them in the file. It's not happening.
Well, you know what? But I have seen that happen. But those individuals are scrupulous. Did I say it right?
Unscrupulous.
Oh, there you go. Unscrupulous. Well, they are without scruples. There we go. We'll put it that way.
Without scruples. Unscrupulous.
They're without scruples. But you know, but those are the types of things that I see, and I've seen managers do it. I haven't so much seen employers do it per se. The CEO of the company, that I haven't seen. But managers, totally different situation, because they are on a massive scramble to cover their backside.
Yes. And managers are far more likely to engage in that sketchy behavior than HR is.
Absolutely. But that's the thing. If if the leaders of the company don't know that that's happening because they don't have that relationship with their HR person, or the HR person is afraid to say something, well, guess what? It's going to be another Gawker Media situation, a Terry Boella and Gawker Media situation, right? It's where, Hulk Hogan actually won $140 million in a lawsuit against Gawker Media, and Gawker Media was then sold to another company for millions of dollars, and then eventually closed in a very short period of time after that because the company was unaware of what their employees were doing. And that wasn't the sole reason why he lost, or why he actually won and Gawker lost. It was a massive component to it. And so, huge component to it. But that kind of thing happens.
It does happen, but I just want to make it clear that it's not the norm.
No, it is not the norm.
This thing from Mr. Pollard makes it seem like all of us HR people sit in our back rooms trying to figure out how to screw over the employees. And that's just not the case. And I think, like you said, they didn't know what their employees were doing. Right. And that's more of a symptom of bad HR and bad management than evil HR or evil management. It's just, I'm a slacker. I haven't paid any attention. A lot of times you'll see with a bad manager, they'll have a high degree of turnover, whether people are quitting or they're transferring out or whatever. A good HR person and a good senior management will say, hey, a lot of people are leaving this department, and they will investigate and find out what's going on. A bad senior management and a bad HR person just keeps hiring replacements. Oh, another person's gone from John's team. Let's post it. Boy, unlucky. Instead of going, it's probably not luck,
Probably something more else going on around here.
There, if it happens to you once, it's bad luck. If it happens to you 17 times within a year, you're probably the common denominator there. And so a lot of times you can have, with either overwhelmed HR, because a lot of people are overwhelmed. And just the other day, I don't remember whether it was on my Facebook group, Evil HR Lady, or your Facebook group, Brenda, the Next Gen Women in HR. It was in one of the two places. Somebody said, what's the good ratio of HR to employees? And and someone answered, oh, well, we have 600. I was like, 600 to 1.
No. No, that's like a football bet right there. Listening to that.
Yeah. And someone else was like, I was thinking 50 to 1. And I'm like, 50 to 1 seems a lot better than 600 to 1. I don't know if 50 to 1 is necessary, but 600 to 1 is not. And you think about that poor HR person, there's no way she can do anything other than just keep her head above water.
If that. I mean, there's so much that'll get slipped through the cracks. And excuse me, that kind of environment is where people's that real deep-seated distrust for HR. It's those environments where that stuff kind of starts to happen, right? Because there's no attention paid to what's important to an employee. And so, this is a lawyer that is very effective, mentioned it earlier, very effective, and will get to the heart of that real quickly with somebody, because once somebody loses trust in something, it's very hard to get it back. And so, we all have those situations to where we have an employee that unfortunately falls through the crack, but you have a chance if you are Johnny on the spot with those things, and you address what needs to be done and to get things fixed and to build that trust in place. You're not going to run into attorneys like Mr. Pollard, but you're also going to run into the one-off situation where no matter how hard you try, and I hate it when these things happen, but you've done everything right on your part. You've set the proper expectations. You've figured out how to resolve the issue. And the people that you count on to help you do it either drop the ball or stuff goes sideways, right? It's just the universe totally just came out of alignment for you. Somebody was missing their third paycheck in a row. You figured out what the problem was and FedEx lost the package. It's
Right.
like, oh my gosh, right? And all it did was just reinforce in that person's mind that payroll and HR completely incompetent, and it absolutely just gives more evidentiary support to them to say that you can never trust them because they're always going to screw you over, right? Those moments are painful, absolutely painful. You're going to have them. You're not just going to have them once in your career. You're going to have them a few times. And there's only so much that you can do to resolve that problem. But you are going to you can't give up on that person. You have to work like 3 times as hard to get the trust of that person back. And then recognize that once you have it back, it is not going to stay there. You have to absolutely continue to reinforce and back that relationship till they get to a point where they recognize that it really isn't you. The world is messed up. Life happens, but you do have their best interest at heart. And once you sell them on that, then they will be a raving fan of yours forever.
And this is something that got beat into my head by an HR leader that I had. Her name was Denise Peppard. She was brilliant HR leader. And she used to say, why will they trust me to give them advice if I can't get, their paychecks correct? And this was in a massive pharmaceutical company, and there's no way that she had anything to do with anybody's paycheck. But her point was simply that if everybody wasn't pulling their weight, she was not of any value, because you go to an executive team meeting and everyone's like, yeah, this is a problem, this is a problem, this is a problem, this is a problem. And they don't want to hear her great insights on, a reorganization or, whatever things that she had insights on. And that type of thing happens quite a bit in HR. And as you were saying about FedEx losing it, I remember a situation where I was sending something out FedEx to an employee, and FedEx marked it as nobody was home. And the employee says to me, I saw the FedEx guy come down the street and just turn around. And so I called FedEx, oh, so sorry. And the next day, it doesn't get delivered again. This time, FedEx has marked it as address does not exist. And so I'm back on the phone with FedEx, and I'm like, how can it be that no one was home yesterday, and today that address doesn't exist? And I'm like, no. And they're like, so sorry. And on the third day, they finally delivered it. That kind of stuff happens.
It does. You have no control over that whatsoever.
No control. But who does that employee think is the problem?
You.
Me. Mm-hmm. I will say the fact that they saw the FedEx truck turn around
that's a good thing. But you know what? Those soured Sally ones are going to, then the thing is that your circumstances can be coming up and they're going to just look at you and like, yeah, she's lying. She's full of crap.
And that's why, we have to be the best. We do. And sometimes I think our lack of communication skills can lead people to believe that we're manufacturing evidence or pushing stuff under the rug. Because do we give feedback back? When someone complains about sexual harassment, are we closing that loop? Or are we handling it all behind closed doors? We've done something, but we never go back and tell the person that made the complaint. And so as far as they can see, all we did was push it under the rug. They may not know that this person got sent to training or got a demotion or any of those things. They don't know it. All they know is that I complained, and the guy I complained about is still coming into work every day.
And that leads to my number one live and die rule in life, which is in the absence of information, people make stuff up.
This is absolutely true, and which is why I am in favor of full information dumps as much as possible. And, that is, it's just such a true principle. It's such a true principle. What nature abhors a vacuum, it'll put something in. And it's what they come up with is 99% of the time worse than reality.
Yep, absolutely. So if you have a situation like this, and if you want support, you have a bad day, you just need somebody to hear what you have to say, there's 2 places that you can go for that.
There are.
Yeah, the first one is over in Suzanne's group, which is the Evil HR Lady, the actual Facebook group. It is an open group. They have the absolute best HR memes anywhere. I swear to God, I have no idea where these people come up with these things, but man, I've seen some real good ones over there.
Really good.
Yeah, I participate over in that group as well from time to time, but it is a great place to get resources, to get a good laugh, to get things off your chest. You can ask an anonymous question, and Suzanne will actually put it out there for you guys, and it is absolutely awesome.
It's a great group, really supportive people, and especially like if you're an HR department of 1 or 2, we'll be your coworkers.
Yep, absolutely.
And you can also go to Brenda's group, the Next Gen Women in HR. And Brenda's is a closed group, and she screens. So there's only HR people in there, or only people that are good at lying and pretending they're HR people. You should be like, your entry question should just be like, define the following acronyms.
That's right. No, it's nothing like that. Our questions, we want you to answer a couple. We want to know what your challenges are in HR, and we want to know, what your goals are in HR, because I mean, it does a couple of things. Number one, it demonstrates, you are in HR. And number two, it demonstrates that, you really are wanting to be part of a group that you get the most out of everything. And you know what? Priorities and things change. Suzanne and I can sit here all day long and tell you what we think is going on in the real world, but how can we help people if we don't know what is actually on your mind? So we take advantage of that opportunity to connect with you in a virtual environment. It's our first introduction to you. We want to know what your problems and your challenges are, because how else are we going to be able to, provide the right kind of content and topics like this if we have no idea what's going on? So we ask those questions.
And it's all good. And in Brenda's group, one of the great advantages you have is it is a closed group. So you can feel pretty confident that no one's going to share it. Or your boss won't see it or whatever. In the Evil HR Lady group, we are an open group. So anybody can see it. They don't, but they could.
Yeah. So bad. You don't want to find yourself on the receiving end of that bad stuff. So anyway, I'm going to flash our contact information up here. If you'd like to get a hold of us, please, by all means, reach out. We'll put our social media up again, and we'll get you guys what it is. So we look forward to seeing everybody next week.
Yes.
Every week.
And hopefully we'll see you in 2 weeks at the HR Summit. So sign up for that. And remember, HR isn't entirely evil. We're mostly good.
That's us. We are.
I'll give you a hug with a cheesy saying on it.
We'll see you guys next week. Have a great one.
Bye-bye.